Hi, welcome. If you're new here, I'm Jen, and I help queer, non-monogamous, and neurodivergent families with the challenges of parenting outside the box. And this week, for Week of Non-Monogamy or Week of Visibility for Non-Monogamy, we're talking about the question, what does polyamory plus parenting look like? So we're talking to David today. David, do you
Hey,
want to introduce
sure.
yourself and your family, and what does your
Yeah.
family look like right now?
Yeah. Thanks for having me. My name is David. I use he, him pronouns. I am in Kentucky, which is an interesting place to be poly and to be in this family arrangement. I'm a therapist. I'm a professor. So I kind of have a professional and personal side to my poly journey. Currently, my family looks like a bunch of cohabitation. Myself, my co-parent, who we've been together for 20 years. We have a 14-year-old. And then we both have partners. My partner recently moved to the same city as us. So that's been an adjustment over the last year. And then my co-parent's girlfriend also lives with us, and they've been together about 3 years. So it has been a journey, and we've all been growing and learning as we're in this journey together, learning quite a lot about ourselves and about ourselves as individuals and as a group.
Yeah, which is common to most of us that we learn
Right,
so
right.
much on this
It's
journey.
something, yeah, it's something really different, when, we've been open for probably about 4 or 5 years and probably spent uh, almost a decade, maybe 8 years, kind of exploring this and talking about this and kind of waiting. I think there was a stage of definitely staying in a monogamous relationship when our child was younger, as our child experienced some different health concerns and things, and that was kind of the focus. And so then as our teenager now is at a different stage of life. We've been able to explore a little bit as well. But it's really different to kind of have my professional side of my life, working with clients over the last 15 years in my practice and in my teaching, and then to also apply all of that to my own life as well and try to be uh, a learning polyamorist.
Yeah, and you mentioned, so my next question was going to be, were you poly first or a parent first? Because we
Yeah.
see both happen.
Yeah. We were parents
And
first.
yeah, you
Yeah.
answered that. And I'm curious a little bit because this is something that I hear from parents a lot who are
Mm.
considering opening a relationship is like, if I have kids, should I? And I'm curious about, it a little bit about what influenced that decision for you, both the decision to stay monogamous for a while and the decision to open up, and
Mhm.
how those conversations went between you
Yeah.
and your co-parent.
Yeah, I mean, those conversations really emerged over time. And I think for us, a lot of it started with deconstructing our childhoods and kind of deconstructing messages we had received about sex and sexuality and gender expectations. And over the first decade of our relationship, really learning who we are as adults. I mean, we married very young, in my opinion. I mean, we were 21 right out of Bible college, actually. So, there's a lot of deconstructing that gets done in in the adulthood phase of life. And I think that, the conversations really emerged from I started kind of the conversations. I tend to be the one who uh wants to read every book and wants to process every possible theory and potential and what would this be like and what could it be like. And at first she was, like, whoa, hold on a minute, what are we talking about here? This would kind of change the foundations of who we are. And it did. It really did. It allowed us to, I think, express parts of sexuality and gender that otherwise were not expressed in our lives. So really coming to recognize our queer identities, my queer identity, and it allowed us to really know each other in new ways and to now meet, a wonderful community and have partners that are in our lives that are also in our teenagers' life now, which has been really cool.
And one of the things that I heard you say there is that it did change everything about who you are.
Mm.
and that it didn't break the relationship in the process. Because I know that's a fear so many people have coming in, is like everything will change,
Yeah.
and that means breaking it. And that realization that sometimes it's going to break, but sometimes it's possible to change and
Mm.
change within, you know, together, still be together through that change.
Yeah. Yeah. I think really there were moments where we thought it was going to break. We thought it was, like, is this still the best, arrangement for us? And how do we co-parent? And how do we, you know, love each other and allow each other to change? And it really goes into, a lot of times I describe my style in polyamory as kind of relationship anarchy, which I have a lot of feelings about those words. I like to call it kind of relational abundance, relational creativity. And, being able to say, we have 20 years of shared history and family and a child and a home and so much that we love and so much that makes us who we are. And then an expression of that love being the ability to let someone grow and change and figure out, how do I love the person as they're becoming this new version of themselves, which is healing trauma and healing, deconstructing, like I was saying, religious stuff, that we were brought up with, and gender messages. So there were moments where it's like, what is this becoming? What if it becomes something that we are moving away from? But I think it's been worth it. It's been worth it. And the part that has also been worth it is, I think, the honesty, even though it comes with a lot of difficulty. And also now watching our teenager be able to explore their own gender and relationship desires, and that there's a model, that our teen is able to follow, that otherwise we might have passed on some messages that we didn't want to.
Yeah, so much growth that I hear for you individually as well as together.
Yeah, yeah. And I think, my own growth, I think that opening up and deconstructing and at times de-escalating a relationship with my co-parent, and then also parenting, have been the two most meaningful aspects of deep work in my own life, deep emotional work, deep attachment wounds work, right? Kind of knowing, how do I first become secure and trusting in my own instincts and in my own needs, and then being able to join in relationships with that attachment that is secure. So these two things, parenting and opening up, are the deepest work ever. Yeah.
Yeah. And I hear that a lot. I'm curious if there's anything that you've found that you've seen as a challenge, or that you don't think that people who don't have this unique combination experience. So
Mhm.
challenges that monogamous parents or polyamorous folks without kids don't experience. Is there anything about that combination that you found uniquely challenging?
Hmm. So the unique challenges of being poly and being a parent. Yeah, I think a lot of times it's when we're at home and we're kind of in our family structure and we understand each other and we know what, emotional safety looks like. We know how we talk about things. We understand polyamory. We understand our boundaries and our needs. That's a really great, safe feeling. I think one of the challenges has been when we're out in the community, both in, gay, lesbian, bi community, queer community, and also in heterosexual community, people saying, "What are you doing? Like, what's going on here?" And those concerns around, having a teenager and wanting our teenager to have the language also to talk with their friends about, here's who my family is. And the worries of sometimes like, okay, what are monogamous people going to think about this? Are they going to let our child hang out with their child, right? Are they going to have some feelings about it? We've been privileged in having other poly families in our area, being able to connect, in person with some other poly individuals and families. But I think the unique challenge has been, okay, what's going to happen when people learn about us? Um, I joke like our neighbors. I don't think they have an understanding of like who lives here, and you know they kind of wave and they look and they're, oh, hey, how's this all working? And uh, so those kind of external forces are sometimes I think the unique challenge that has it's made my heart nervous. So at times.
Yeah, which makes sense, especially with a child,
Mhm.
the fear of stigma is something I hear about a lot from people who are exploring polyamory. And, it's one thing to take on that fear for yourself, but
Mhm.
to put a child into a situation where they might encounter stigma that they didn't sign up for
Right,
is
right.
it makes sense to be concerned about that and to carefully consider, who is your
Mhm.
child going to be exposed to? What's the
Exactly,
community like that you live
exactly.
in? Those kinds of things, and having really intentional, thinking and talking about that is
Yeah.
really important.
It all
Yeah.
goes back to, the communication around, my co-parent will be out. We had this situation where she was out at the grocery store with her girlfriend and ran into a parent from our child's school, another parent. And they made small talk and had a nice day, have a nice day. And later we found out that that parent went home to their teenager who goes to school with our teenager and said, I think that I think they're cheating on each other. I saw them holding hands at the Trader Joe's and asked the teenager, like, what's going on there? Do you know what's going on there? And the teenager was like, yeah, they're poly. Like they're in an open relationship, mom. Like, so it's funny sometimes when the kids have language for it and the parents assume, oh, someone's running around, right? Which,
Mhm.
is kind of and why would they be doing it out at the Trader Joe's? Like if it were, and it's like two
Prime
blocks
cheating
away from the
location.
school, right? And the cheese aisle, it's like 2 blocks from the school. So having to face some of those moments of being like, we are who we are. I am what
Hmm.
I am. And, don't go through our teenager to try and ask questions. So it's interesting. I think in my professional work and then also in my personal life, when maybe you hear this sometimes too in your work, you'll talk to someone and, oh, I'm poly, or, I have, multiple relationships, non-monogamy, whatever words we use. And sometimes people will say to me, oh, I wish, there's, oh, I thought about that, or I could never do it. I could never do it. I'd be too jealous, or I'd be too worried about it. So people express this like, oh, I might, but I don't think I could, which
Hmm.
is one of the other reactions I hear sometimes.
Yeah, almost like they're looking for permission.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Hmm. So I know that you have a ton of wisdom to share with people who are on this path, but
From the wins and the losses, from the good and the bad.
uh-huh. Yeah. So maybe thinking about somebody who's in that position where they're watching this and they're like, ooh, but I couldn't.
Oh,
Is there
yeah.
something you would offer somebody as like a starting place?
Yeah. I love the phrase go low and slow. Keep it easy. You know, I am a person who reads every book, reads every article, wants to have all the conversations, wants to have a game plan. My co-parent partner did did not read books, watch some podcasts, things like that. So go slow and low and slow in a way that you're able to stay in those conversations with the people who are your partners. Um, do a lot of your own journaling, a lot of your own reflection. I think one of the ways to start is the first question is, can you first be alone? Can you first go on a date with yourself? And it sounds so corny, but can you enjoy going to a coffee shop and journaling or, going on a hike and being with your own thoughts? Because so often in poly, your partner will go out on a date and you will be alone with your thoughts. So first, can you do that work? People, and we over engineer it. People want to jump into the deep end, right? They're going to go on a date. I'm going to go on a date every weekend and new people. And that's, you're not alone. You can't first, you have to do this
Mhm.
part. So I think that's some of my advice. There is a lot of great literature out there. I mean, I think, Jess Fern and Polysecure and Polywise does a great job about first unpacking attachment wounds and attachment styles. So that's where it starts, is how do I
Mhm.
first nurture myself before I'm able to bring other dynamics into my heart and into my mind.
And I love that as a starting place too, because even if your ultimate decision is, I can't do that, that's not for me,
Hmm.
the work on being with yourself is valuable regardless of the kind
Oh,
of
right,
relationship structure you have.
right.
So doing that work is valuable no matter whether it goes anywhere
Mhm.
with taking any
Right,
kind of action on
right.
polyamory.
And
Yeah.
that's a really great point, is I know the work I've done in polyamory has bettered me as a human and in my own personality and in my own psychology. I've become a different person, not because of the people who I date or the people I've met or the people I play with and have fun with, but because of the work that I had to get real honest about and say, I got some wounds and I need to work on not just adding people to feel more content, but how do I get content and love on myself? Um, it's hard,
Yeah.
hard, hard.
It is. It's hard, but also so rewarding. And that's
Mhm.
another thing that I want people to hear from this is
So
like
rewarding.
you don't have to be at the level that David is at now before this starts impacting your
Yeah.
life, before you start
Oh,
feeling better in yourself and in your relationships,
hmm.
whatever those relationships look like. Yeah.
This is so true. So true.
The last place I want to take this, because we hear all the time about, oh, it's going to be bad for kids. Kids will be confused. They won't know
Mhm.
what's going on. All of these negatives or fears about
Right.
what will happen if people are polyamorous and have kids. And so I want to hear about like, have there been benefits for your child or for like, what does this bring to their life? What makes their life
Mhm.
better about the way
Yeah.
you do your
Yeah.
relationships?
I have watched my child move through such amazing growth and development. And, it's no easy task for a child to be the child of a psychologist. And my co-parent is an educator and a teacher. My boyfriend is also a therapist, right? So it's no easy feat for a 14-year-old to maybe handle all of it sometimes. But I've watched us be able to add people into our community that bring other life experiences, other aspects of understanding privilege and oppression and understanding discrimination and privilege. And um, I I find that it's a better environment. When this diversity is part of our community, when those voices are part of our community, and you just think about the humans that my child is being raised with, surround them with love and are there for them, not just for the hands-on stuff of like, okay, I'm stuck at work and who can help with school pickup, but like, when they're having a bad day with a friend and they're able to sit on the front porch with one of our partners and they're able to say, I remember ninth grade. I remember, the person who gossiped about me in ninth grade, and they're able to bring that human experience to it. And obviously we have, come to love and trust these people. They're not just randos coming in, but I think it's added this richness. Um, and I think after we finish today, I'm going to ask my teenager that question as well to see how they reflect on it. I wonder what they would say.
And for those of you watching, check the description because if your 14-year-old is willing to share any of
I will
that,
see
I'll
what
put
they
it in the
say.
notes with
I
this
will
so
see what
people
they
can
say.
see
That's a great idea.
it.
Yeah. The 14-year-old report. So.
Yeah,
They
that's
have joked
fantastic.
in the past that it just gives them a better birthday party and it gives them a better holiday gift giving because this one can get this. And we've had to kind of corral them a little bit that the adults are not here to just meet your needs, right? So, that little ego, that little 14-year-old ego.
That's so funny because that's almost exactly the opposite of someone told me yesterday that I think this child was 15,
Mm.
but said that the downside of having polyamorous parents is it's more people to catch you when you're doing something you're not supposed to be.
I am privileged and lucky to have a child that we've has never I mean they have stepped out of line and they make bad choices, but they are typically a rule follower like I am too. So they're probably more trying to see, we're trying to sometimes be like, you want to do this, you want to, and they're like, no, that's not what we're supposed to do. So yeah.
Thank you so much for being
Thank
here,
you.
David, and I hope that this offers some hope and some wisdom
Yes.
to anyone who's curious
Yes.
about this path.
I hope that the folks listening are able to benefit from this and just know that you take it one step at a time, trust your instincts, and keep in conversation first with yourself and in conversation with the people who know you, and you'll get there.
Thank you.
Thanks.